everybody, Goosebumps for Dummies here, and today, for our first Black Swan review of the month, we are going to be reviewing The Curse of the Cave Creatures. Now, this is the 5th Give Yourself Goosebumps special edition, and one of the least popular Goosebumps books ever made. Seriously, this thing gets little recognition outside of being a, rarer book, and that's probably just due to the lack of an interesting cover art. I think it's good. I like it, honestly. I actually really like it, but it just doesn't have an, outstanding color palette. I think it's just quite dull when it comes to actual color. It's really got that blue, that brown, and those oranges and yellows, and a lot of black and gray. And the fact that it's just a bear, not like any special monster. I mean, a ghost bear, kind of, but not, a monster. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about the contents of this book. And now for the blurb. Grin and bear it. What is the pun? You're hiking in the Arizona desert when you spot a cave. Your first mistake, entering. Your second mistake, upsetting the evil cave spirit. Because now the cave spirit wants to take the spirit out of you. How can you defeat this evil spirit? By fighting it on its own terms as a hunter or a spellcaster. Sounds like some D&D shit. And by choosing the best free weapons or magic spells to protect yourself. Which spell will drive away millions of angry bugs and an evil sorceress? Which weapon will soothe a thrashing, growling bear? Choose well, or it's farewell to you. The choice is yours in this scary Goosebumps adventure mix backroom number 20 super spooky endings. I really like this one. I've heard mixed reception over the years, but turns out, nothing to fear. I thought this was a really solid entry for the Give Yourself Goosebumps catalog. For some more basic upsides, I thought this one was consistently decently fun. Some GYGs can lack in entertainment value, but this one is consistently pretty fun, so that's something to uphold, as well as the pretty good average of endings. I think there were no endings that I actually disliked, so most of them were actually pretty good. Most notably too, and I think they came from the Spellcaster arc, the Magic arc, whatever you want to call it, and my favorite one out of this book is the dumbass butterfly cocoon ending. It's so, hauntingly disturbing how predilectedly these creatures are acting in that arc. It's just so gross for me. It icks me the right way, I guess. In other words, terror in being soothing is underrated. And you also have the time fuck ending where you're trapped in a pit, and perhaps you just, you don't get out for a very long time. I'm keeping it super vague. Nice and dark ending. Both of those, really. They're my two favorites. I had to mention them. I usually do. But yeah, a lot of the ends in here are pretty good. Then we actually have the cave spirit themselves. I think they're a very interesting villain character, especially with all the mechanics they have. There is a certain thing they can do in this book involving animating things that aren't usually animated. Like a stuffed tiger, or lion, whatever it was, I forgot. Or literally animal crackers. Yeah, let's just say dinosaurs might come out of, dino crackers, too, I think. It's stuff like that, and I think it's really cool, especially since it has to be animals. It's just a really interesting mechanic that allows for a lot of the more fun bits in here. And generally, the Cave Spirit was a pretty interesting character of what we got of them in their final battles. There are two ways, or two paths, to get to two different battles. And my preferred one was from the Hunter arc, though I think I like the Magic arc as a whole more. But the Hunter arc's final battle of the cave creature, which I believe is the bear one, where they turn into a bear, mainly, instead of, some random dude. That one's my favorite. But yeah, both are really good, the fights, and the cave spirit is a pretty interesting character, and I quite like them. And that's not just to mention how many interesting things there were in this book. I already mentioned a few, but there's also this little ghost town segment, which is pretty brief and a little underwhelming, but it's still, the potential was there, and I quite enjoyed it. And there's a bunch of other things that were, really interesting in this book. Whether it be segment-wise or mechanic-wise and all that stuff. So yeah, this was a pretty interesting read, and a pretty entertaining one at that, though it has some flaws. Let's get it out of the way. There's a literal flaw in this book that's not even opinionated. It's just a factual flaw from the editors. And it happens, I believe, 2 or 3 times. There are pages in this book that send you to the wrong pages. That's because that's how GYGs works in game books in general. They always tell you a page to go to. There's some that don't send you the right pages. Yeah, that's in this book. So if you have not read it for some reason, you're watching this, I spoil stuff you realize. Usually, read a page map when you're going into this. And I feel bad for people who read this without one, because it must have been pretty confusing. Aside from that, though, we also have Dennis. Now we're going into opinionated issues. Dennis is the little brother character in this book, and he sucks. Straight up, he's just there for plot convenience, and he's annoying as crap. So he's a minor role, though, so thank God, but he's still there, and he's worth a mention, because he sucks. There's also the park scene, which goes on way too long, I feel. It's easily the roughest segment of the book. It's a very short-ish segment, but it's definitely, at least 20-something pages, I think. So it's still rough. I don't really like it at all. And it has a multitude of, dentists. And also this issue, action. Now, this is a very personal issue, and I don't think many people would agree with this. This is a very personal thing. Of course, these scores are all personal. This is my personal takes. The action in this book just didn't do it for me. In literature, I don't really like action because it usually just can't flow right with, language. It usually works better on screen, I feel, or just in real life. Funny enough, because there's action. On page, though, it just does not flow right for me, and it takes me out of the story a bit. That's one of those cases here, and there's definitely quite a bit of that. Not abhorrently much, but it's definitely very present in this book. And yeah, it just bothered me a bit. And just to be straight up, this book didn't quite reach its full potential, I feel. Especially if the final boss of the magic arc with the cave spirit. That could have been a lot better, Especially compared to the other final boss in the hunter arc. Like, that was great. What happened there, though? That was not fantastic. That was just good, but not awesome, It could have been a lot better, and there's other bits like that. Just generally, this didn't reach its high, I feel. It could have been overall like a 9 out of 10 if it wanted to with the other issues, but it just didn't reach that. And overall, I already said I wasn't giving it a 9, so I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Yeah, Curse of the Cave Creatures. I quite like this one. It had a lot of interesting ideas thrown in here, and it's pretty entertaining with some great endings, but it just didn't reach it high and had a lot of little things kind of, wearing it down, especially with the literal flaws in the pages. So I can be kind of forgiving for that. Barely anyone has read this book anyways, but that's besides the point. Hope you guys enjoyed this book review. Tell me what you think about Curse of the Cave Creatures down below if you have read it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.